Can I start the session?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can anyone tell phases of respiration? What are three basic phases of respiration?
And glycolysis in feed cycle and electron transport chain.
Okay. So, have you read the introduction of respiratory system? Okay. So, what is respiration? As I told last class, I have discussed. It is basic exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between organism and environment, not oxidation. It is exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the three basic steps or phases include external respiration, transport of gases, and internal respiration. In internal respiration also, it involves two steps: diffusion into the tissues and cellular or cell respiration. So this is ventilation phase, that is exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide with the environment as it opens, the respiratory tract opens to the exterior. Then comes the diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide across respiratory membrane. Can anyone tell about layers of respiratory membrane? Exact kaakaparna? Just roughly. Can anyone say?
Endothelium of the blood vessels, basement membrane, and epithelium of the alveoli.
Okay. In addition to this, actually inside of the alveoli is covered by fluid called surfactant. Surfactant layer and fluid layer. Epithelium of the alveoli. Then comes the basement membrane of the alveoli. And usually between alveolus and blood capillaries, there is space, interstitial space. Then comes the basement membrane of endothelium cells, then endothelial cells of capillaries. Also, after reaching the capillary also, it should enter RBC. So these are the layers. These gases travel on either side. Carbon dioxide to the lungs, oxygen towards the capillaries. Then within the circulation, there is transport. It reaches the tissues. Then there is exchange phase and internal utilization by the cells. So what happens? Basically these are the layers. This is fluid and surfactant layer, alveolar epithelium, basement membrane. In between there is space because alveolus are surrounded by a capillary networks. So obviously there should be space. This is the interstitial space. Then comes the capillary basement membrane, capillary endothelium, and on reaching the capillary, it should enter the RBC membrane or cross the RBC membrane also. On crossing this, then comes the actual transport. So for oxygen transport, usually there is different methods. It can be transported as in dissolved form in water or blood or with the help of hemoglobin. Compared among these three, presence of hemoglobin accounts for about 30 to 100 times more quantity of oxygen transport. So actually మీకు ఎగ్జామ్స్ ఉన్నాయని పోస్ట్పోన్ అయినాయి క్లాసెస్. Actually transport of oxygen should be covered in next day class. So it will be covered in next curriculum. Okay. Diffusion also separate class. Diffusion and transport of oxygen, both classes were postponed. So oxygen will be discussed again. So what will happen after transport? Oxygen reacts with various substances present in the tissues or cells and releases large amounts of CO2, which again have to reach the lungs for expiration. So it again enters the tissue capillaries and transported back to the lungs. Carbon dioxide also, it will combine with different substances and it can transported in 3 different forms. By this combined effect, it will be helpful in increasing the 15 to 20 times more transport. So today in class we are discussing about transport of carbon dioxide. For a continuous transport of carbon dioxide from tissue level to the lungs, usually it requires different mechanisms. One is constant circulation of blood is required. If there is circulatory failure, what will happen? Carbon dioxide will accumulate in the tissues only. It cannot be carried to the lungs. Similarly, from cells, it should enter circulation. So there should be diffusion of carbon dioxide at various sites. This diffusion of carbon dioxide occurs in the direction of concentration gradient. That means, as usual, usually from diffusion means high concentration area to low concentration area. By random molecular movements, it occurs because of pressure gradients. So different carbon dioxide tensions will be, various levels will be in the intracellular region. This is interstitial fluid, that is outside the cells. This is the arterial blood PCO2 and venous blood PCO2 and coming to the alveolar air PCO2. These pressures usually helps in the diffusion of carbon dioxide. This can be discussed again. So transport of carbon dioxide from tissues to lungs can be described under 3 headings. Mainly diffusion of carbon dioxide into blood. After entering the blood, it should be transported to the lungs. Then after reaching the lungs, it should be released into the lungs. So coming to the diffusion of carbon dioxide in blood. So what will happen? This is basic circulation. This is pulmonary, alveoli. This is the tissue level. So what will happen? Carbon dioxide is usually generated at the cellular level. So to promote diffusion, the concentration gradients also varies. This is PCO2 of the cells. It is around 46 mmHg. That is intracellular partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Then tissues are surrounded by interstitial space, which contains partial pressure of about 45 mmHg of carbon dioxide. So as a result of net difference is 1 mmHg. So because of net difference of 1 mm Hg, carbon dioxide moves from tissues to the interstitial space. Here 46 to 45. Then after reaching the tissues, it should enter the capillaries. So in capillaries also, as I told earlier, arterial end of the capillary has PCO2 of 40 mm Hg, whereas venous end is having 45 mm Hg. Whereas interstitials have 45 mm Hg. That means usually what will happen here? Venous end is equal to the interstitial fluid. So there won't be any diffusion of carbon dioxide into capillaries. Whereas on the arterial end of the capillaries, it contains only 40 mm Hg, whereas interstitium is 45 mm Hg. So because of this net difference of 5 mm Hg, carbon dioxide enters the arterial end of the capillaries, then through capillaries reach the venous end. Again, at the venous end, it do not any variation because it is equal. So after entering the capillary arterial end, it circulates into the venous capillary and reaches the pulmonary circulation. How it reaches the lungs? That is transport of carbon dioxide in the blood. Venous blood contains, here we have discussed about PCO2, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide concentration. Here that is volume. It is described in form of volume. Venous blood contains about 52 ml. We all know as venous blood carry deoxygenated blood from the tissues. So obviously it should contain more volume of carbon dioxide. Whereas arterial blood reaches the tissues carrying oxygenated blood. So it contains less carbon dioxide, that is 45 ml of carbon dioxide. So the variation is 4 ml of carbon dioxide. It is the net amount transported per 100 ml of blood to the lungs. This is per 100 ml. That means if we assume the cardiac output is 5 liters, the total amount of carbon dioxide transported is 4 into 5000. That is about 200 ml carbon dioxide per minute is carried to the lungs. It is transported in different forms. After cell, it enters the circulation. It can be directly dissolved in the plasma, or it can be converted into bicarbonate ions. This is bicarbonate ions and carbamino compounds. That is either combining with amino group of hemoglobin or amino group of plasma proteins. So among these, mostly through bicarbonate form only it reaches the lungs. Least is the dissolved state. Individually we have to discuss about this. Coming to transporting dissolved form. Dissolved form means it is directly in plasma usually. So venous blood, as I told earlier, about 2.7 ml per 100 ml, whereas 2.4 ml per 100 ml in the arterial blood. So net amount will be only 0.3 ml per 100 ml is transported. This is in dissolved form. Whereas in bicarbonate form. Bicarbonate form means here of what will happen, this is the tissue levels, CO2 entering the RBC. This is the RBC. With the help of carbonic anhydrase. It is an enzyme present in RBC which helps in by the combination of water, it forms the carbonic acid, H2CO3. But it is unstable product. So it will lyse into HCO3 minus bicarbonate ion plus H plus ion. So what will happen? By this reaction of carbonic anhydrase, it releases bicarbonate ion and H plus ion. So then what will happen? For transport, bicarbonate ion should enter the fluid plasma outside of the cell. So it enters the plasma through the RBC membrane. To compensate that, what will happen? Because of moving of bicarbonate towards outside, there will be less negativity within the cell. So to avoid this or neutralize this, we have to get more negative ions or cations. But RBC membrane is usually impermeable to cations. So to compensate this lost negativity, chloride, that is also negative ion, enters the RBC. This is called chloride shift mechanism. Whereas this H plus liberated is buffered by hemoglobin, which forms the conjugate with hemoglobin, HHB. So this is the bicarbonate form. Whereas this is the dissolved form. Only quantities are mentioned. RT venous 2.7, arterial 2.4. So overall 0.3 ml per 100 ml is transported and dissolved form. This is bicarbonate form. So again here same. What will happen? These bicarbonate ions on reaching the diffusing into plasma, they combine with sodium. Usually they form transported as sodium bicarbonate. It is an alkali reserve amount. As it is alkaline, it is actually reserve. It helps in buffering system balance the acid base balance of the body. As I told earlier, this H plus is buffered by hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is also an important buffer in the body. So, as I told, to compensate the loss of bicarbonate, that means less negativity, to compensate, we will get other negative ions inside, especially chloride. This is possible by the help of chloride bicarbonate exchanger. It is also known as band 3, a transmembrane protein. So, because of this shift of chloride ion, this phenomenon is called chloride shift. It is also known as hamburger phenomenon. It can be usually given as short notes also, very short notes also. 3 marks question on the chloride shift or hamburger phenomenon. So, what will happen because of this chloride shift? Because of the chloride shift, more chloride ions are coming into the RBC. So, there will be increased osmotic pressure within the RBC compared to the plasma. As a result, because of increased osmotic pressure inside the RBC, there will be accumulation of fluid in the RBC. So, usually carbon dioxide volume will be more in venous blood compared to arterial blood. So, these changes occur more in the venous blood. So, there will be swelling of venous RBCs. As a result, packed cell volume. Packed cell volume means not only number but also size of RBCs also account for packed cell volume. So, PCV of venous blood is comparatively higher than that of arterial blood, and because of this accumulation of fluid, they become swollen and fragile. So, venous RBCs are more fragile than the arterial RBCs because of this chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomenon. So, next third form is the transport of carbon dioxide in carbamino compound form. In plasma or in RBC, it can take place either ways. In plasma, what will happen? It combines with amino group of plasma proteins and carbamino proteins. Whereas in RBC, it combines with amino group of hemoglobin forming carbamino hemoglobin. So as I told earlier, here carbon dioxide can combine with amino group of hemoglobin forms carbamino hemoglobin, or it can enter the plasma either in dissolved form or some of the carbon dioxide entering the plasma can be combined with water forming bicarbonate and liberate H plus and HCO3 minus. Then it can combine with plasma proteins also. So either way, carbamino compounds are transported to the lungs, either in plasma or in RBC. Actually, this phenomenon is usually reversible. So that will benefit us because it should be reversible. Otherwise, it cannot liberate carbon dioxide on reaching the lungs. And more, that is 70% of the reaction is by bicarbonate form. So this reaction should be faster compared to all these three. Similarly, this carbamino mechanism is slower in process. Also, it can be modified by 2,3-DPG. 2,3-DPG full form చెప్తారా ఎవరన్నా? బయోకెమిస్ట్రీలో వస్తుంది కదా 2,3-DPG present in RBC. 2,3-diacyl phosphoglycerate. Usually it is compete with the CO2 to combine with hemoglobin. So the presence of 2,3-DPG concentration alter the amount of this reaction. So overall, these are three different mechanisms. Transport of carbon dioxide in blood demonstrating formation of bicarbonate. Here this is carbon dioxide on carbonic acid liberated into bicarbonate in exchange with chloride, that is chloride shift. Second one is B, this is B, that is buffering action by hemoglobin. It helps in the carbamino reaction, hemoglobin CO2, carbamino compound. So coming to the carbon dioxide dissociation curve. What is carbon dioxide dissociation curve? It is relation between PCO2 and volume of CO2, pressure and volume of CO2. Actually, if you completed oxygen dissociation curve means, we will understand this better. Oxygen dissociation curve is usually where oxygen pressures will be varied very much. Here it is showing this is the normal operating range. That is PCO2 usually is 40 in arterial, 45 in venous. So this is the normal operating range. Because of very narrow range, it is usually linear in relation. Even though pressure concentration varies, usually it is linear in relation. Whereas oxygen dissociation curve is sigmoid in shape because pressures varies between here only 40 to 45. There in some areas there will be 100 mm Hg in alveoli, whereas in tissues usually there will be 40 mm of Hg, partial pressure of oxygen. So because of this large variation, the graph also will be represented as sigmoid shape. Here only it is linear in shape. So what are the factors affecting the carbon dioxide dissociation curve? Oxygen, 2,3-DPG, body temperature. So what is the effect of oxygen? Here there comes a mechanism called Haldane effect. Usually మీకు ఈ రెస్పిరేషన్ లో వీటన్నిటిలో మెయిన్ గా ఈ టర్మ్స్ ఇంపార్టెంట్. ఆక్సిజన్ కాన్సన్ట్రేషన్ దగ్గర ట్రాన్స్పోర్ట్ దగ్గర మీకు బోర్ ఎఫెక్ట్ వస్తుంది, వెరస్ కార్బన్ డైఆక్సైడ్ విల్ బి హాల్డేన్ ఎఫెక్ట్. హాల్డేన్ ఎఫెక్ట్ అంటే ఇన్ రిలేషన్ టు ఆక్సిజన్ ఓన్లీ. వాట్ విల్ హ్యాపెన్? డిఆక్సీ హిమోగ్లోబిన్ ఈస్ capable of loading more carbon dioxide than oxyhemoglobin because compared to carbon dioxide, oxygen will have higher affinity for hemoglobin. So if more oxygen is available, then means more oxyhemoglobin will be formed. Very less CO2 is taken up by the hemoglobin. That means in deoxyhemoglobin what will happen? Because of decreased oxygen or availability, more carbon dioxide can combine with hemoglobin. So this is normal. Similarly, in lungs also what will happen? Because of more oxygen, oxygenation of hemoglobin in lungs increases CO2 unloading from tissues. What is the mechanism? Hemoglobin, because of decreased oxygen, it should attach or load the carbon dioxide along with hemoglobin and it reaches the lungs. After reaching the lungs, because of more oxygen availability, it releases or unload the carbon dioxide. This is the basic effect is called as Haldane effect. So this carbon dioxide dissociation curve represents the Haldane effect. How? This complete line is the oxygenated blood. That is PO2 is around 100 mm of Hg. That is usually it is seen in alveoli of the lungs. Whereas deoxygenated state, this dotted line, it indicates the tissue level. So here PO2 will be around 40 mm of Hg only. Then points of A, B and CD. This demonstrate the carbon dioxide content. So what will happen? In the deoxygenated, when PCO2 is around 40 mm of Hg. Deoxygenated blood, that is point A is higher than point B. That means more loading of carbon dioxide takes place at PO2 of 40 mm Hg compared to PO2 of 100 mm Hg. Whereas when PCO2 is around 45 mm Hg, what will happen here? Because of PCO2 means here usually 45 mm Hg means that means it already reaches the alveoli level. Then there should be unloading. So here deoxygenated blood is more. That means binding is more. That means unloading is less. Here opposite effect. So here blood with PCO2 of 40 mm Hg reaching the tissue. That means it draws or loads the CO2 more at PO2 of 40 mm Hg. That means usually if this is the curve, shift to left comes this side indicates more loading or more attached binding of CO2. Whereas shifts to right this side indicates more unloading or shift to right in lungs. So whereas at the level of PCO2 40 mm Hg, usually shift to left, that is more binding takes place for the deoxygenated blood. Whereas shift to right, more oxygenated blood. That means leaving of, that is unloading of CO2 is more at oxygenated blood compared to deoxygenated blood. So coming to the effect of 2,3-DPG. 2,3-DPG means, as I told earlier, 2,3-diphosphoglycerate. Usually in glycolysis or glycolytic pathways, it helps. So what will happen? As I told earlier, it competes with competitive binding. Competes with CO2 for binding of hemoglobin, especially in the deoxygenated blood. So increase in the quantity of 2,3-DPG decreases the formation of carbaminohemoglobin compounds. Decrease in the binding of carbon dioxide means, as I told earlier, there will be shift to right, this side. Curve comes this side, shift to right. Whereas third effect is effect of body temperature. Increase in body temperature causes release of oxygen from the blood. That means RBC become deoxygenated hemoglobin. So as a result of deoxygenated hemoglobin, it can allow more CO2 binding. That means shift to left occurs because of effect of temperature. This, as I told earlier, left shift or shift to left means more binding of CO2, whereas right shift means less binding. So deoxygenated blood, then increase in body temperature helps in shift to left of the dissociation curve, whereas oxygenated blood and 2,3-DPG decreases the binding, so it helps in shift to right. So after reaching the lungs, what will happen? It should release the CO2 into the lungs. So here also same. Usually venous blood, that means coming to the pulmonary circulation, that is pulmonary artery carries the deoxygenated blood. So after reaching the lungs, it contains PCO2 of about 45 mm Hg. Blood contains about PO2 of 40 mm Hg as it carried from the tissues. So overall quantity will be around 52 ml per 100 ml. Whereas among the alveoli, there is PCO2 of about 40 mm Hg. Because of inspiration, PO2 will be around 100 mm Hg. So carbon dioxide volume also less. Because of expiration, carbon dioxide volume will be less in alveoli, 48 ml per 100 ml. So net effect will be release of carbon dioxide from capillaries into the alveoli. So quantitative wise, it is around only 4 ml per 100 ml. As I told earlier, if cardiac output is 5 ml, then total amount of diffusion per minute will be 4 into 5000. That is 200 ml per minute. So again, this is described in this mechanism. So what will happen? Mainly release. First, it is initiated by oxygen only because of concentration gradient of PO2 around 104 to 100 mm Hg. Here around 40 mm of Hg oxygen. So because of this pressure gradient, oxygen enters the capillaries. Then it combines with the and replaces the hemoglobin carbamino compounds. So it liberates H plus and carbon dioxide is liberated, which is released into the plasma. Similarly, this H plus on combining with bicarbonate causes carbonic acid. Again, it is unstable, so it liberates CO2 and H2O, which are released into the plasma. So either this carbon dioxide or either this liberated carbon dioxide enters the plasma and it diffuses through the respiratory membrane against the concentration gradient, because PCO2 in capillaries is 45 mm Hg, whereas in alveoli is 40 mm Hg. So net 5 mm Hg helps in diffusion of carbon dioxide into the alveoli. So what will happen here? Again, there is another mechanism. I will tell again. So release of carbon dioxide from carbaminohemoglobin into the plasma. Here, three forms should be liberated as carbon dioxide into alveoli. So as I told, this mechanism same. Because of oxygen, the sequence of events takes place. So because of increased oxygen concentration, there will be low affinity for CO2 and unloading of CO2 occurs. As I told earlier, this effect is known as Haldane effect. This is Haldane effect. Whereas in case of oxygen, there comes the Bohr effect, which is influenced by CO2, which is under the influence of CO2, oxygen is liberated to the tissues at the tissue level because of Bohr effect. Whereas at the respiratory level, because of oxygen, CO2 is liberated. This is called Haldane effect. So reverse chloride shift. As I told earlier, what will happen here? Because of oxyhemoglobin combining with, there will be formation of oxyhemoglobin, there is liberation of H plus. So to form carbonic anhydrase, bicarbonate ions are required. These bicarbonate ions enter from plasma. Usually in plasma, what will happen? Sodium bicarbonate helps in carrying the carbon dioxide. So to liberate carbon dioxide, it is also separated into bicarbonate and sodium. This bicarbonate enters the RBC to form carbonic acid. Because of entering of bicarbonate, it should be neutralized by moving of chloride out to the cell. So what will happen? This is reverse chloride shift. Reverse chloride shift. So as I told earlier, here at the tissue level, there is chloride shift to compensate the lost bicarbonate. Similarly, at the respiratory membrane level, there will be reverse chloride shift to compensate the entry of bicarbonate ion. This is reverse. Chloride is moving out. Here, chloride is moving in. So chloride shift and reverse chloride shift, Haldane effect, Hamburger phenomenon is other term for chloride shift. So for diffusion of carbon dioxide from plasma to alveolum, the pressures helping are usually this is venous circulation. After reaching the right heart, through pulmonary artery, it reaches the alveoli. In the alveoli, the pulmonary arterial blood concentration is around PCO2 is 45 mm Hg, whereas intraalveolar PCO2 is 40 mm Hg. So through net effect of 5 mm, there is diffusion into the respiratory membrane or alveoli through. So what are the other factors concerned about the carbon dioxide transport? There are different vehicles. For transport, it requires different vehicles. What is the rate of total CO2 transport and any change in pH during transport of CO2, and what is respiratory quotient. So what are the vehicles for CO2 transport? As I told earlier, it can be carried in different forms through different medium. So what are the different medium? Plasma. By dissolved form, only very less amount, 7%. So here it shows that in venous blood, it carries about, content is about 1.8 ml whereas in arterial blood 1.6. So net amount will be only 0.2 ml. That means so it is not a good transporter. It is also negligible. Whereas in bicarbonate solution, usually overall transported form will be through bicarbonate. It is 70%, very large quantity. Through bicarbonate solution, that means if it acting as medium means it is net effect will be 0. So it is also not good transporter. Whereas whole blood, as it also involves plasma, the net amount will be 4 ml. So whole blood is the usually ideal vehicle for CO2 transport. So what is the rate of total carbon dioxide transport? As I told earlier, 52 minus 48, that is 4 ml per 100 ml from the tissues to the lungs is the normal transport of CO2. Whereas in comparison with cardiac output, that is 5 liters. So 4 into 5 liters, it gives about 200 ml of CO2 is transported per minute. Whereas during exercise, because during exercise there is increased metabolism, similarly increased circulation also. So depending upon the severity of exercise, the carbon dioxide transport rate also will be varied. It can increase up to 4 liters per minute also. So what will happen to any pH changes? What is happening here? Usually pH of the arterial blood is 7.4. Then arterial blood on reaching the tissues, it again through capillaries it becomes venous blood. So while following through the tissues, what will happen? More amount of carbon dioxide get accumulated in the arterial blood. So the pH decreases from 7.4 to 7 because carbon dioxide is usually transported along the bicarbonate. So comparatively, because bicarbonate pH will be altered. So fall due to formation of carbonic acid because bicarbonates are utilized. So alkaline will become the neutral solution. Whereas during exercise, what will happen? As I told earlier, it can be rate of transport can increase about 4 liters per minute. But there won't be much change in pH because of blood buffers. There are different types of blood buffers like plasma proteins, hemoglobin, and sodium alkaline pH. Sodium bicarbonate also an important buffer. So while transporting large amounts of carbon dioxide also, because of easily diffusion property through membranes, it can occur more rapidly without any difficulty. So what is respiratory quotient? Respiratory quotient is nothing but ratio. It is ratio of rate of CO2 excretion and rate of carbon dioxide consumption, oxygen consumption per minute. That means CO2 excretion divided by oxygen consumption per minute. Respiratory quotient are also known as respiratory exchange ratio or simply RQ. RQ means respiratory quotient. So what is the normal value? As the normal rate of CO2 excretion is 4 ml per 100 ml per minute, whereas rate of oxygen consumption is 5 ml per 100 ml per minute. So by this formula, we get the normal respiratory quotient is around 0.8. There will be no units because both are same units. As it is ratio, they get cancelled. So what is the respiratory quotient value is 0.8. So it can be varied based on the fuel consumed, either depending on the intake of food, carbohydrates, proteins and fats. If only carbohydrates, that is glucose, for example, usually equal amount of carbon dioxide eliminated and oxygen consumed. Similarly, whereas fatty acids and proteins, usually it is less than 1. That means what is the less than 1 increased? Oxygen consumed is more compared to carbon dioxide released. So whereas in any anaerobic respiration, it is values will be more than 1. That means in anaerobic respiration, oxygen will be less, carbon dioxide will be very high. So value will be obviously more than 1. So this completes the different respiratory mechanisms. Coming to the overall summary, from tissues, it is transported either in dissolved form or through bicarbonate form. Here, this is bicarbonate form, this is 70%, or through combining with hemoglobin forming carbaminohemoglobin form. Then there occurs, to compensate this bicarbonate loss into plasma, there occurs chloride shift in the tissue level. Then from systemic circulation, it is transported to lungs. On reaching the pulmonary circulation, it should be liberated to release into the alveolus. So here, with the help of entry of oxygen, the mechanisms usually started. So it can be, it's separated from the carbamino compounds, or through bicarbonate it is liberated. Then to forming the carbonic acid, bicarbonate enters the tissues or the alveoli. So what will happen RBC at the level of alveoli? To compensate this, again there is moving of chloride towards the out. Here it is reverse chloride shift. Other phenomenon are chloride shift is also known as Hamburger's phenomenon. Whereas owing to the presence of oxygen, the change in carbon dioxide loading and unloading gives the effect of Haldane effect. So this is the basic transport of carbon dioxide in the system or body. So any doubts? Any doubts? ఎగ్జామ్ ఎలా రాశారు?
బాగానే రాశాను.
ఇవి రాసారా? క్లినికల్ క్వశ్చన్, అడ్కామ్ క్వశ్చన్. మిగతావి అనాటమీ, బయోకెమ్. ఓపెన్ బుక్ సిస్టమా, క్లోజ్డా? So any doubts? Can I end the session?